Okay, Jessica, here we are, year 2. Year 1, you guys proved you can compete with the top teams here. Just now going into year 2, what's the focus? What's the expectation then?
Winning now, right? Not just qualifying for the postseason, but winning it all is the goal. So that's the big difference. Is I think we got better from a team perspective, player perspective. So the expectations, I think, from the supporter group, from our own team perspective, our staff perspective, is win it outright.
Those year 1 jitters gone now. Would you say that even for the players and
Never.
what you've said? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
No, I don't think the jitters or the excitement ever really goes away. I think that's a part of playing or coaching and doing it all, like the fun factor of competing. So I think year 2, even though we have higher expectations, it still is exciting. Again, new players, not new system, but evolution of a system, perhaps, and see how that plays out. So the excitement just gets adjusted a little bit.
What are some points of emphasis that are going to influence winning on the pitch? What are you guys planning to work on within the short season that's going to transition?
Yeah, we have a really strong periodization plan and game model with Jordan as the technical director, so we're very much a similar style with Project 510. So our periodization model and what we've done with our players, our over 23 group and our training group since March we've been training, has been tactics based. And preparation level for our over 23s, we had about 8 to 9 training sessions more this year than we did last year. We saw how we opened up last year in May with that hot day and the doubleheader. So we are a lot more prepared or better prepared than we were. But our periodization model and our game model is strong, and so hopefully that starts coming out with some of our players. We're actually today we're filtering in new players into our system because they finished college, so we have to go over the same principles quite a bit to help evolve that.
Another quick question: who are some of these new players that you guys are hoping that are going to contribute, to that winning culture that you want to set?
Ariana Veland has been with us with a couple of weeks. She just finished playing pro in Europe and has now moved to San Francisco, so we're lucky that she landed in San Francisco and kind of found us. She played with NR in college, so that's been nice. Alice Barberi is down at UCLA. She'll be joining us soon. We have a couple of Pac-12 or former Pac-12 players, I should say now, ACC. ACC players that are joining us. So they'll start to come in over the next few weeks. Kaya Cody is at San Jose. She played professionally in the Netherlands and is working her way back into a college system with eligibility. So we have a nice group of players that are really experienced coming in and filtering in, and to be honest, it was a team recruitment process. So some of our players were recruiting additional players or their friends, and so far, yeah, we have to see them in training. We haven't seen most of them in training yet, so we just have to wait for them and their schedules to open up.
Jessica, we've heard from a couple of gals on the team who are local, and they're returners, Sydney, Haley, and they take a great amount of pride in being the faces of something special starting in the East Bay and for women, and the WNBA coming in next year, and just a special time. Do you sense the purpose in these women? Like, we're part of something, not just on the field, but to inspire and bring
Very
something
much so.
here.
Yeah, very much so. We saw that last year as some of our players probably noticed it earlier rather than later, and so that became really contagious. I think in year 2, in having a strong returning group and the excitement around what Soul is doing, and then eventually going into Super League, that the growth and the community support is really driving them, not just from being here, but feeling fan support and meeting little girls or little boys in the stands. Like, I think grows their passion for it, and so they become more involved in the community. So you see a Sydney or a Layla, Sam, Miranda becoming more involved, and they're the ones who really drive the culture, to be fair, which is also a great part of being a part of this community.
A quick question, specifically about like the Alameda community here on Bay Farm and on the mainland.
They're okay. They push me out of the way if it happens. And let me shake my hand. Yeah, they're good.
You kept that in play.
Yeah,
What
play
are
on.
some like specific events are you guys gonna put on, or like like the meet and greets, like public? How are you guys gonna publicize, just being a part of the community?
That's over my pay grade as far as events. 100% over my pay
Of
grade.
any right now?
Oh, I know of some that are going on because we're involved. I don't think I can actually say anything about one or two events or groups that we're connected with.
We have some plans.
But there are certainly some plans, and it's really inspiring, the connection of the group that I know we're working with. So, and there's a connection to some of our players as well. So that, I think, is even more important to our group.
Jessica, so you talk about your first year, last year was a whole experience. So you've had a whole real year to prepare for the season. What was your off season like, and what's it like warming up and gearing up for this year?
My off season, I was working at Cal State East Bay. Yeah. But off season here there was a break component, and then in January we had some of our college players come in, and we had a college open training session and an invite only training session, and we had a youth player invitation session, so that grew. Then we had tryouts. So from January to end February, we were really working on the roster, or the start of the roster, and gaining commitments from our returners, which was pretty much done in July of last year anyway, right when the season ended. I was like, okay, you're coming back. Okay, you're coming back. But the reiteration of it, because we had Jaden Ivey go over and play in Europe, right? And Sarah Murr is right now in Europe. So when Sarah comes back, she'll be joining us, right? She'll get released from her club and she'll hop on, I think, the third week of May. So that's also exciting. So it was really roster building, and then just what we wanted to do from a team perspective of additional style of play, periodization, what were key elements of our over 23 group, and then just getting out and scouting. Right, so we have a couple of youth Mexican national team players who are in our system, like U15, U16. We'll have some that come from the USID training centers, and that was a big part of it too, of connecting with parents and kind of figuring out where they fit within it. So you'll see some of them tonight too.
Okay.
You referenced the extra training.
Yes.
So what you referenced, just that learning curve. What other, I guess, analytics or stats or hydration or whatever it is did you touch on to realize that, or was it just purely?
It was just play.
Mission?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was just on-field work. We recognize also that our players aren't paid; they're not professionals yet. So there also is a value to us having fun, right? And the returning group came back because they had fun last year. So that was a key component. Also in recognizing how we opened last year in our first game, we had to track back and work on some physical aspects and also understanding of the game a little bit, because our over 23s, again, our core group, our heaviest group of players as far as numbers on the roster, needed more lead up time to prepare for that heat. I don't think any of us expected it to be 90 degrees at Cal State East Bay that day, and we were tired. So we recognized that might be the case when we're playing in Stockton this coming Sunday. So we're a little bit more prepared for that. That was the goal.
Okay. And what specifically, when you say those physical things that you did? I mean, is it just
playing? I mean,
Okay.
our training model is always around playing, and the periodization model that we follow here is based off of tactical preparation, game preparation. Sometimes it's football conditioning and playing a high, fast-paced game. And it was really honing in on what days make sense. We were training 2 to 3 days a week. As of late, we're now headed towards 3 and 4 days a week. So that was really the key elements.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I would have a couple more questions about the community. Just how do you, just any comments on the Soul as a pathway for women to further their careers in anything that they do, especially soccer?
Yeah, it's special, right? It's unique. We realized that, or I realized that this is different than any other W League system and even youth system, right? So how we have a pathway for youth players to come in and train with women or former pros rarely exists here across the US, right? So a pathway for youth players to see what that next level looks like and to be able to train and do it and be around really great women is a key. Our college players are getting a taste of the pro world as we filter through what that looks like, and our player profile essentially is what does a Super League player look like, and how we're keeping an eye on players or how we're developing players within the system is a part of our periodization model too. We didn't have access to the college players in the spring. We now have access to them now because their season is over. So there's a developmental model that goes along with it. And then our pathway, Sarah Murr played pro, Brinkman went off and played pro after this whole season, Jaden Ivey's playing pro, and then we have a couple that will be coming back from break. So the summer league opportunity is really big because we saw Nadia Gomes get picked up and she's playing in Chicago and she's starting and she scored the first goal, so just from a W League NorCal Soul perspective is that we have some really talented players. You're playing against the best consistently, and there is a pathway because of the brand now, right? Like Roots is a brand, Soul is that next. Exactly. So I think the word is also getting out amongst the pro-ish population or the group that wants to play pro, which then we become one of the first thought process of how do I get in there.
And the fact that it's happening in Oakland and in like the Alameda community, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Like on like the placement of it, like how it's all connected in this huge area that is the Bay Area.
Yeah, I'm learning about the Bay Area, right? Like I'm not from here, so that is. I feel very invested in learning more about the community. One is a reason why I work here. Two is also working at Cal State East Bay. And three, like how I'm connected to the youth players within this community. So I'm invested in it from a women's football standpoint, right? Like there are some of the best players that come out of here. So what does that look like from a community standpoint or a support standpoint, or even we have a couple of Oakland players, right? Like that have Oakland addresses that are youth players. That for me is a high priority, right? From investment in a community outside, like Mike Geddes, right? Like how he invests in other programs outside, whether it's Oakland Genesis or sometimes, even teams will come in here and train from the local community, and it's really outstanding to see. So I think that continues. Sydney works for Girls Leading Goals, which is a girls soccer program. Right, like so even they're figuring out how a way of being invested in the community without not under the Soul brand, and I think that's one of the best parts.
With the Super League coming so close, theoretically, what does that do for the mentality around the club? Like, does it make an uptick in intensity? Like, what does it do for your mentality?
I mean, this is intense. Like to start off with, right? From a women's club perspective. This is intense. So when players walk in and this is the first that they see, nothing exists like this. And even NWSL teams, right, don't have this access. So, of course, when the Super League was first announced last year, there were questions from the players of what does this actually mean? So as we're going through the process, there certainly is an education component. We do have players that want to continue to play pro, get picked up by Super League teams. Or look to play Europe or pick up an agent, right? So what's the first stop? Oakland Soul, right? There maybe be a handful of other W League teams that can do essentially from a football perspective what we're doing, but I think this is a really unique environment, and positive word of mouth comes from our players, hence why you might see a couple more college teams or college players start to filter in. I'm not going to specifically mention or throw love to one specific one, but I think that is an important piece where players are learning and understanding, and the first place that they look is here. Even if they're from out, right? We've had requests from all over the country, but it's just a matter of, do you fit our core values, right? From a culture standpoint, then it's a football standpoint. But we've gained a lot of interest, but people also think that we're a pro team. So we have to remind them we're not pro yet. We will be.
Yes.
And people still want to come. So it's just kind of filtering through what that might look like.
It feels like a pro situation.
100%.
I have not been here much since the Raiders left. And
it is. We do everything that's pro.
Right.
How we train the players, how we treat the players, what we offer the players. The only thing is, they're not paid. That's about the only thing. Some of them work 9 to 5, some of them are going to school, some of them are youth players, right? So that's why we also train at 6 p.m. They do other things. But they walk into this, and this is a pro environment. I mean, we're full staff. So it's myself, and I have 3 assistants and an athletic trainer. Who has that from a summer league perspective? No one. So that's why it 100% is a pro environment. They're just not paid. Which I wish they were, but that's a different story.
So you had a pretty nice rivalry last year with the San Francisco Glens.
Yeah.
What are you kind of feeling like this year with the team you're putting together? How you feel?
Yeah. It's like
Are you
saying
excited?
Voldemort. You don't say Glens around here. No, I'm just kidding.
But it was so much fun. Your
it
games
is.
were so much fun.
Yeah,
so,
it is.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just. So are you looking forward to that rivalry again this year?
100%. Now the question is, will the Glens be the Glens? We don't know. So the interesting part, I think, is our league gets better. I've had interest from either players I know or from other college coaches across the country looking to send players to the NorCal League. I didn't place any players at the Glens, but I've placed other players in other teams in our NorCal division.
Okay.
That will be interesting.
Yeah.
How the Glens shape up, I'm sure it'll be very similar to kind of having that club system, filtration system, right? If Heath is there, we saw El just signed. They just announced Ellie Piper there. So, that starts it. We don't know if Olympic Club, or we expect Olympic Club to be stronger just based off of who they are. And now one of their directors has moved over to Olympic Club from Glens. So now, does that get stronger? Right? We know Cargo is stronger. So I think the rivalry, yes, it's absolutely the Glens because
The whole division got.
we lost twice to them, but I don't like losing twice. But I think it's just a rivalry. Storm. I mean, you want to bring Storm into it too. And I think I just saw something where like the Storm and the Soul fans get together as long as we beat Glens. So, but it's a great rivalry. I think we're not all friends, but we definitely have a really strong like competitive model that gets the system better, and I think that's the most important thing.
And I just have one last question. It's so important to secure the Coliseum for the future of women's sports in the Bay Area. Just if you could express why it's important for women's pro sports to secure the Coliseum, just what would you say?
I mean, we're seeing what's going on in women's football across the world and how stadiums are being sold out, and just the attention to women's football. Why not us, right? Like the history that's involved with it, and games that, to be honest, games that I've seen played in a baseball stadium are so fun. So that there's an added element to it. But I think women's football is growing. I know women's football is growing. There's a business behind it. There's a love behind it. There's a passion behind it. So playing in something like the Coliseum, I believe, means so much to the supporters and the fans and the community. We're the perfect place to start rolling as a pro team. I mean, it really, I think for some, if, Soul 3.0 works out for some, what a dream, especially being from the area. What a cool experience to walk in. I think it's different than walking into just a soccer-specific stadium.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you just think of what's gone on there, the history of it, the players that have been there. And it becomes more special than a newly built freshman stadium.
And also just to bring pro sports for, a bigger group of people, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. More people in the stands will take it.
Yeah.
All
right.
You could fill the Coliseum.
Yeah, I'll leave that to Tommy, but I believe it. Yeah. Yeah. That would be amazing.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I hope so. Yeah.
Also draw those international, where the Bay is playing, it's only like 18 or 19,000,
and they sell out.
Yeah.
I mean, I was at the first game, so I think women's football does an amazing job of now marketing players, right, and marketing teams. So I can see us in the community and the involvement and the passion for sports and women's football just exploding.
Yeah.
What are some games that we should mark our calendars for besides the Glens?
Every home game.
Every
no,
home
I'm
game.
kidding.
Yes.
Every home game. Well, I want to say when we do a doubleheader with the men, right, at East Bay, June 8th, for sure. That's a chance to sell out for our game and really make an impact and a statement. And we did it last year, but you really push the community for those. Of course, our Glens and Cal Storm and those, but I really think every game in this division this year is going to be a good game. I mean, I hope we win.
Play on Treasure Island.
I believe so. We open Treasure Island. So I think we opened the stadium with
That's
them. so-
awesome. And just one
Oh yeah,
question.
and I just wanted to go call way back to the beginning. You kind of
Yeah.
talked about like the evolution of the style going from last year to this year.
Yeah.
What are some like hallmarks of like traits of the team that like fans should be looking forward to? Like things we're gonna expect Soul to play like this.
Great question. We're so creative from an individual player perspective. I have a feeling that will start to come out more. Their relationships are building the more they're training with each other. Even, the college players some of the college players that we've not seen yet, they're coming in today, but there's an excitement as they join, right? So there is a growth of experience. We had 12 youth players on the team last year. We have now one. Layla, I don't count as a youth player anymore, but she is actually. Jordan Geis is a returning youth player. Layla is a returning youth player, but UCLA was just named #1 recruiting class in the country, so they're no longer youth for me. But our 8 to 12 youth players that were consistently being rostered last year are now all college players. So we have a few youth players that we have training with us and that we might see rostered, but our experience just from that component grows so much, and the confidence and development within college systems and having a year within the belt and knowing the system of our over 23 returners is so much better. So I think you'll get better soccer.
Okay.
A little bit more entertaining, hopefully on the sideline, not too much entertaining. I think you'll see a more cohesive unit when it comes to.
And what things do you do to like blend when you bring those new players in that you haven't even seen yet? What are like some like ways that you blend them into the system to get them feeling so comfortable? Because it is such a strange way of building a team in like a sports landscape.
Totally. I think our older group, our returning group, does a really great job with that part. They are the ones who will go over and introduce or show them around the facility or really connect them during training. So from a teammate perspective, they do a wonderful job. Everything that you saw last year as far as the connections was based off of them. I just kind of threw them in the same place and they figured it out. So that's what I think what makes this team or Soul 2.0 like so special is just who they are as people. And I think that the culture and how they hang out with one another, I think, is a really important piece, and how they grow. So how they involve everybody, they have a come with me attitude. So on the field, you really start to see it as they start to problem solve together. We just throw the training sessions together and I say, go on this team, go on that team. But it really is like their actual connections that they're learning. So
I guess without spoiling anything, are there any like particular combinations of players and things that you like expect to see that like are I guess a thing to look out for this year?
Well, Sam and Miranda tandem is always a good one. I think Anar and Ari actually playing in the midfield will be really fun to watch.
Okay.
Our outside backs are a year older too, so Mana's back as long as we can have Mana back until she goes to the World Cup. So, but Mana's taking a final today, so we won't see Mana. Anything involved with Mana is a yes, but I think a Sam and Miranda duo is always a fun one.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Of
And
course.
yes or no, going for silverware?
Always.
All
Both
right.
if possible.
All right.